Hey, bro. Welkom bij mijn nieuw Counter-Strike South African podcast met Tech Girl.
That's supposed to be a South African accent.
Listen, to everyone who isn't South African, that was amazing. I don't care to everyone it was terrible. That's all you need to know.
It's a good
That's how
attempt,
you sound to us.
I thought that sounded Russian. I was very thrown off. But
Listen, let the fans decide. Let the fans decide in the comments. If you want to
gonna
hear
be
more
like,
of that, let me
oh,
know.
lekker Melani.
Okay. And I was going in and out of English, Afrikaans. I was doing everything there. I was doing it all.
Oh no, it's great.
I was very impressed. There you go. Welcome to Feed the Trolls. Thorin has the South African episode all set up for you. That's what he did. TC is joining us. And I don't actually know because Thorin normally finds our guests. He mentioned to me that TC was coming on. I don't actually know if he told you what we're even talking about
I did
today,
on this
TC.
particular occasion.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
damn.
I did get a little heads up, and I do know Duncan likes to like tailor the ingredients of
Yeah.
the show. So when I got the topic, I was quite like surprised and like, oh, okay, I see. This is interesting. I wonder what he's got in
Sure.
store for us. So yeah, no, I'm sure it will be a good one.
I'm surprised you agreed to it, knowing the topic. I thought he would have to hide it because everyone knows he's s1mple's biggest fan. And I thought anyone
Who
coming
knows?
on here knows exactly what they're getting because we are going to be doing an episode today about s1mple. Just because after what we saw in Krakow and just the online chatter about s1mple and BC Game, I think, Thorin, you've touched on this. You wrote some stuff on your Substack. Just s1mple was the conversation the whole way through the group stages. So we
Sure.
figured today would be a fun time to kind of break it down. I want to start though by just asking you, both of you, and the reason I'm asking this is you're not going to believe this. I worked with someone like a year ago, 2 years ago, and they mentioned to me that they had kind of got into Counter-Strike around the COVID era, right? So at that point, the concept of s1mple, while they know the hype around him and they know who he is and they've seen his highlights, they didn't live really through the s1mple era in the same way the rest of us did. And so they were kind of like, oh, that's cool. They didn't really get it. So I need to set the scene for all of those people who don't get it and ask you, I mean, for you, TC, why do you think s1mple was so beloved? What was it about him that got you excited about Counter-Strike?
I mean, yeah, it's like you're saying, right? Like it's almost like mind like boggling to almost comprehend that someone like wouldn't know who s1mple is. But I mean, there's obviously always new viewers coming in and new fans and so on. You know, it's obviously like nowadays it's all about Zayu and Donk and Manesi and so on. So yeah, but it's like mind boggling to us who've been a part of the scene for so long that someone it's like s1mple, who's s1mple, right? But I mean, yeah, I just feel like s1mple is such an icon of the game, right? And he had so many iconic moments throughout his career. And I think we could even see glimpses of that again now at in Krakow, right? Where it just, he makes it feel like any situation is still like, even if it's in a 1v4 or whatever, it doesn't matter. You feel like there's a chance, right? And there's not a lot of players that you get to watch where you put them in these like extreme situations and you still feel like, oh, like he could actually win this, especially like, oh, he gets one, he pops you know, you're so ready for him to get the next one. I mean, he just gave us so many iconic moments throughout the years that I feel like it's hard to not love him, like, right, as a player and like just for the gameplay that he shows, right?
For sure. Now, I mean, Thorin, on your side, I've seen the two of you, s1mple and you, go off online. I know that there's been some great banter, but you still every episode I think we've done with Feed the Trolls, if this name comes up, you're there. You're just hyping him up. You're his number one fan. What is it that makes you so in love with s1mple? Because normally you turn on players very quickly if they disappoint you, even in a little way.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He never actually disappointed me by just being bad at the game or like just thinking he's good and then it was like fraudulent or something or it was exaggerated. Like I actually do think as a player, he probably is the most transcendent Counter-Strike player ever. Like I even made the point that when he was at his best, the funny thing is it only took a few years for Z-Root to come along. But when s1mple was actually number one, there wasn't really any competition at the time. Everyone thought he was just number one by far, if anything. People like Device when he got in the conversation because they won every tournament. That's about the only way you could cram them into this discussion. So he actually was already for me at his peak at the level of like Faker and all those names you hear of that, like the Mount Rushmore of esports. I would say if you wanted to put a Counter-Strike player up there, this would be our candidate largely. And then also, even though, like, first of all, the reason why we have the beef online is obvious because we're both just super standoffish individuals, aren't we? Who don't just go well, that person's annoyed me slightly. So shall I go to their level? You go, nah, fucking fire every nuke in the silo, and you just go scorched earth. So when you get two individuals like that, that's why there's only two states we can exist in. We're either like mortal enemies, or it's like when I did that interview, I'm like, oh, sorry, I always respected it. Yeah, come on and get a hug, get a daddy hug. That's all right. So sorry, he's back in the fold now. It's all good. No, the real reason also is this, because I notice, as usual, I have to be the voice of reason on this, that because there's so much baggage around Simple, like his personality, the fact that he was like number one, the fact that people know all these things about his lifestyle since CS2 came out that imply he's not tried to work hard and he hasn't been diligently in the server and he's been like essentially living like a rock star lifestyle. I think so much of that ends up blurring into people's analysis of the player Simple. So if you notice, every time he does a comeback, actually, aside from just fanboys on forums, most analysts go too far the other way. I think they always make it sound like, well, look, it's going to take him at least like 6 months of grinding before he's ever going to be able to do anything. And, don't expect him to ever be good again, guys. I'm going to be a top player. And I always just want to go. You'd be right if you were talking about 99% of players that ever existed. But this guy, he is literally the one, for fuck's sake. Like, if there's anyone, and he's done it every time now, who could come back, on a month's practice and probably doesn't give a fuck about his teammates and hasn't even watched the demos to update himself on the meta, but still mess around and get a mad 3K, do a bunch of no-scopes and some crazy flick shot, which he still did in all these tournaments, if you remember. You can instantly... There's another thing, by the way. The real problem someone like Zewu has is he's, like, excellent in a way that generally, unfortunately, blurs away, and you can't quite frame on what was the exact round he did there. Every single shot that Simple does is iconic. You know what I mean? You can see them all in your mind the second you start to talk about the round or the team he was playing stuff. So I think to me, he's just a very compelling figure. Also plays into like narrative elements, what's cool about heroes in the game and what do we like people who are bad boys and all these things. But also I do think he just has outrageous talent level. Like I think half the discussion now about BC game is this even actually how good Simple can be? Because actually on his like return after 7 months away from LAN, already looks pretty decent actually.
So that is something we're going to speak about, but I kind of want to go back to what you were saying, and I suppose it ties into the attitude and some of the sort of rumors behind the scenes. But obviously, there was a drop off from Simple. There was a drastic change in performance. We saw. I mean, some of it was online. The infamous, I enjoyed the Malta hotel issues. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, he tweeted about how disgusting this hotel was that he had to stay in for, I think it was Pro League. The hotel proceeded to tweet back about how disgusting he was.
Hotel wall.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, this was sort of that rock star attitude we talk about.
Sure.
You visibly saw him shouting at some of his teammates at events. It got quite messy. For you, Duncan, I mean, what is it that you think was the fall off for Simple? When did it happen? Why do you think it happened?
I mean, a lot of the like bad behaviour towards teammates was always there. I always just said the joke is whether the teammates were excellent and the team won all the time, there's just going to be less of that. It's like a natural thing in teams. A lot of people I actually think get that the wrong way around. They think it's like, and then when he finally, if you write in the like sports documentary, you go, and then finally he eventually realised he had to trust his teammates, and then they won the major. No, it's the other way around. Like when his teammates were so good they could win the major without losing a map, didn't really have much reason not to trust him. You know what I mean? In that scenario, he's not going to be going like, you bloody, actually won 13-4. Yeah, right. Yeah, keep going. Like it's the other way around, isn't it? So first of all, I think a lot of that's like, again, that baggage is what people assume caused his downfall. I actually think his downfall was two things. One is a totally understandable black swan event, which was that his country was literally involved in a military conflict. As far as I know to this day, he cannot live there. I even believe, if anyone ever saw, because it happened at the beginning of like the last year where he won Hitchell TV #1 in 2022, he was already dropping off a little bit later in that year. And I think there was a story the very next year where he said in an interview something like that he'd only been and seen his mum like once in like some outrageous, like 9 months or something like that. He'd had to just live outside the country. So one, I'll totally shade that in, as that could certainly affect where your heads are, what your priorities are in the world. Also, this all came, remember, that was something crazy like 3 or 4 months tops, maybe 2 or 3 actually, right after he just won the major. So he's already hit what seems like the peak of the game. You're on top of it all. Then you have this real life circumstance coming that might start to distract you a bit. And then you have to add in things that were a consequence of that. Like, for example, the second that conflict began, if you remember, initially, actually, Na'Vi didn't do anything with their roster. They kept the 3 Russian players, and everyone just thought it was an awkward thing of like fans were trying to see who thought what and has anyone said anything. But I actually always got the sense that if that team had won that next major when they were in the Antwerp final, maybe they would have just kept that roster together. But then it began what I think internally was sort of if any of these players either drop off in any way or there seem to be like superstar requirements. Look, there's a political reason why we should probably move them all one by one out of the team. And spoiler, eventually they were indeed all moved out of the roster. So I doubt that helped with the team cohesion and where we're headed. And then lastly, it's just quite obvious. At the very, very end, they only, if you remember, had done like 1 or 2 lands when he went to that international. Might even have been that first land, that one where they went to the international roster that later Wonderful replaced him in at the end of CS GO. He already seemed like he was a bit burned out then. So I feel like the CS2 change was just the excuse to be like, I need some time off. And then I've always said this. Nobody could ever have predicted that when Wonderful came in, they'd actually win the next major. Like, everyone just thought, can Wonderful even just be all right? Like, essentially, can you just be like a really poor man Simple? So I've always said, I always thought the reason why Simple was at that major in person, when Na'Vi had never come close to winning a tournament with that roster, was I always thought at the end of that major, when they'd have got knocked out like the round of 8 or something, they were going to announce, don't worry, after the play break, Simple's coming back. And, thanks to Wonderful for standing there. So I also do think like he did get burned out. And then I actually think the last thing, like I referenced there, is no one could ever have predicted he'd have this crazy time where not only would Na'Vi win the major, but then they became number 1 without him. So all of a sudden, think about that. If you'd have said any moment before the day that Na'Vi won the major, Simple will never play for Na'Vi again, everyone would be like, no way. Like, come on, it's his teammate. Like, they're all waiting for him to come back. So there's so much there we can go into. It's up to you. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, like, no. I'm just thinking about like, yeah, like that whole period specifically. I mean, like, obviously there's so much stuff happening, and I feel like for a person like Simple, who's like already like established himself, and you have all these outside things happening in real life, like it makes it hard to like really focus on the game when you have all these little shit happening in game, but you have a lot of other important things happening actually in real life outside that you actually does require your focus. So at some point you just shift the focus towards that, right? But I think just to go back into what Duncan was saying around like all of these things and like the fact that he was not coming back, I think that wasn't the final straw that I think he actually didn't board the flight to the Sydney event.
I think it was
Blade
Sydney,
actually
yeah.
had to stand in. And you know what I think, like a lot of these, like, I mean, we wouldn't have that many of them, but you have these like superstar
people don't
players.
know,
Obviously,
not only did Blade stand in, he had to be the Opera as well. There's no way that was planned. There's just no way.
Exactly.
No
so I think it was literally a thing of like he just didn't board the flight, right?
Yes.
So and then it basically just happened like this. But like I think with these like types of players and these types of superstars in the game, like I feel like you kind of feel like you have like a little bit of leeway to kind of just do what you want, right? Because which team is going to say no to you?
Of course.
Like if of course, if like another team's out there and we can get Simple, or even like for him back then, I'm pretty sure it was like, oh well, I can just come back to Na'Vi at any point, right? But then like Duncan says, they go on and do really well without him, and all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, fuck you. Like, why do we want to deal with this in the team again when we are actually look pretty capable without you? And I think like that's probably also like added to the longer period of off time and him not coming back, right?
Do you think, TC, I mean, as a coach, do you think the time of that sort of superstar attitude is gone, though? Because if you think about the superstars that we have now, for the most part, they come across quite humble, quite well-behaved. We haven't had a story about a simple type behavior in a while of someone like throwing a temper tantrum at an event. Every so often there's someone, but it's nowhere near those levels anymore. I kind of feel like management in teams just doesn't put up with it.
Is it? I don't know if it's a matter of management like not putting up with it, or people being like more well behaved. Really, I think it's also like you saying, like the superstars that we have nowadays are more like a little bit more introverted, and to be fair, like it's a little bit less personality towards them, so it actually makes it like a little bit less interesting, right? A little bit more boring in a way. But I think also with the introverts come other issues where like it can be more like passive aggressive behavior and more like internalizing and then like letting things build up and then like eventually like lashing out behind the scenes, which we probably don't really get to see, right? So I don't think it's a matter of it being completely gone. I mean, like if you're a donk and you're playing with people you don't want to play with, I'm sure you can just be like, well, fuck, get rid of these guys. I don't want to play with them, or either you lose me or you lose them. And I mean, what is the all going to say at the end of the day, right? So I'm sure that superstar mentality is still there. Maybe it's like better managed in a way because obviously teams nowadays do have a lot more staff around them. I mean, you see like all of the top tier teams like Vitality and them are always traveling around with their performance coach. I think even giving him like props in interviews and things like this. He's been with them for a while. So I do think that helps maybe just get rid of these like problems before they become a bigger thing, right? Because obviously if you have that outlet to vent about these problems or whatever, it's things that can actually be addressed and dealt with before it gets too bad. But I think it's also, like I said, more of a situation of the personalities that we have nowadays that are the superstars at the moment don't really have that personality where they're just going to be blunt and tell you, hey, you fucked up there, right? And then like there's a little argument developing. I mean, to be honest, it was interesting to see in Krakow now, because it's been a while that we've seen like people yelling at each other while we're just walking there, busy to go and set up. It's like, oh, interesting, what's happening here, you know?
I wasn't there. I missed that. I was thinking, because I know that Navi's performance coach joined after s1mple had kind of moved away from that international roster. But I always wondered, Thorin, how s1mple would cope with the sit-down meeting after a game where you unpack the backpack. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when he and if you don't know what the unpack the backpack is, they basically all sit in a group and each player has to like unpack some of the issues that they have with their other teammates or what went down. And the idea is you unpack it all there, say what you need to say, and then you move on. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that unpacking.
I do feel like that goes a bit counter to how you might. Like my joke would be, when I was a student, right? I did the classic thing when you're on your own, which is you're not the one who washes all the dishes up, are you? So you just let them pile up until the whole sink's like outrageous. And then the problem is when you then do it, it's like you feel like you're in hell. It's like the half a day of like bloody hell, you have to tackle all stuff. So why I learned, right, the secret was if you're on your own, actually just do it the second you finish eating. So it's one plate, it's one fork, it's one thing. It takes like 30 seconds. So my joke would be, s1mple would be like, what's in the backpack? Like, he unpacked his backpack every single second there was anything to put in it. Like, isn't that actually sort of his secret in some way? So I have to say, I don't think it would work. And then also, it does remind me, even though, yes, this is like 10 plus years ago, so he would have been a lot younger. There's a story that I actually told in a Substack recently where I used to know all the coaches and stuff of the old Team Liquid when he joined back in the day when he was just an up-and-coming player. And there was a story that was basically this sort of an attempt where a coach took him aside and said, like, oh, look, because all the rest of his teammates were North American players, people like Legion, all those guys, you know, Nitro, etc. The coach took him aside and said, s1mple, listen, you've got to understand, like, some people in the team think that you're like being, you know, over the top in practice, and, you know, you're sort of being too forceful and you're being a bit selfish, and they want you to play more for the team and, you know, try to communicate more. And even though any of us with any life experience would go, right, read between the lines, obviously the teammates told the coach because he doesn't want to make a scene, he doesn't want to confront you directly and be, as, you know, like aggressive. He's sort of in a passive aggressive way, right, the coach will deal with it and he'll let you do it privately, will save you the shame. So the joke is, s1mple was like, yes, I understand. Then they went into the next scrim and s1mple just goes, wait, which one of you, like, stood in a circle and went, which one of you was it who said it to the guy? And saying, fuck, that's not the point. The entire point of that is not to have this confrontation. Like, bro, the coach seemed to look at him like, bloody hell, this is the whole reason I told you is not to do this. So already I can see it wouldn't be that great in my opinion. And also, as TC sort of alluded to, by the way, this would depend what era. If this is s1mple when he's shit hot, he's the number one player. He's like old Kanye West. You can't tell him nothing, mate, of course, because the problem is he was always right. Like, there's another story that we've told back in the day when he was on, like, Flipside or whatever. In scrims, they would, like, be holding B on Mirage or something, and they'd all get, like, plowed by, like, a full rush. And he would be like, let me have that. And then he would go in there, take, like, big anchor or something, like, actually just no-scope, like, 5 people with an AWP, turn to the teammate and just go, that is how you hold B, and then go back and think he did something. And it's like, that's nothing, mate. So the real problem is, like, in a way, it is hard to tell s1mple he's wrong. So I can tell you, if you have an argument with him about that sort, he's also really knowledgeable about the game. Like, pros can do this. It's actually a secret coaches learn. It's why you make behavior separate from, like, analysis of the game. Because if you let a pro like that drag you into their worldview, what they could and wouldn't, you can't. They're always right, mate. You're wrong. You're just a pleb compared to them. So I feel like you'd have to be really skilled at, like, making it about things like, this isn't about what we do in the game, and it's not about what our roles and who's more important. This is somehow, you know, it's about our communication or how this person understands the game. I think you'd have to be really skilled at, like, man management to get through to something like that. I don't think it's impossible, but I also do think as well, it'd be hard to do if, like think about the worst of Na'Vi was when it was the academy players they were putting up. I'm sorry, those players, I don't think s1mple respected on day one. You know, he probably wouldn't have chosen them to be there. It was probably a cost-saving measure early on. So I also feel like a certain type of teammate, I don't know that you'd ever get through to him. I feel like you have to reach a certain threshold. It's actually why the BC.Game project is so interesting. I think he's sort of putting on a bit of like, no, I'm fine with these teammates now. I don't know if he is, mate.
I think it's also like with these things, sorry to just interrupt there, but with these types of things, like what you're talking about, like unpacking the backpack and like doing these things all together, it's like really hard, I think, for some people who, like Thorin is saying, he's just doing it right there on the spot, right? To then justify that this is worth like his time, right? Because now instead of like him having like an hour to go and relax and do whatever he wants or whatever, now he's got to do this extra thing like every day or every other day or maybe once a week, however often they do it, right? And then a lot of people end up seeing it as like, well, this is just a waste of my time. What am I doing here? Like, why aren't we just doing this in person on the spot? But obviously there's different personalities who can't necessarily handle that conflict or that confrontation like as it's happening on the spot, and they like just withdraw into their shell and they like refuse to basically say anything, right? But the thing with these kinds of players, I think that also like maybe the community, like just with all the HLTV forums and topics that were popping up as it was happening, what people don't understand about it as well is that like sometimes with these players, you just need to also allow them to get it off of their chest right there in the moment, right then and there, because otherwise you're going to prevent them from playing their best for the rest of the half or from carrying you for the rest of the match, because now all he's doing, because he's got to hold it in because the team can't handle it or whatever, now he's sitting there thinking about the fuck up that happened 2 rounds ago, 3 rounds ago, 4 rounds ago, and he's actually not in it and not focused anymore. So it's also about like having the right team and the right personalities around these players, right, that can also understand that like, hey, s1mple might go off and say something crazy during the game. Just understand that like he's also just trying to help. Like he's trying to make us better, he's trying to make us win. Maybe he's not doing it in the best way, maybe he's not doing it in a way that you agree with, but that's his way of trying to help, right? And I think that's very important for people to understand as well. But then obviously it does also get to a point where you need to start weighing up whether the value that you're getting from his input is exceeding the value that you're getting from like the drop off that you might be experiencing in 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe even all 4 of the other players who are now sitting there and being tilted that they're getting yelled at or whatever. And then obviously with time, resentment starts building up.
One thing you're getting at here, which I think is never spoken about with the s1mple thing is, you know, the whole saying like it takes 2 to tango. Apparently with s1mple, it's just a solo dance and no one else is even involved. He's the only variable here and he should just be the best guy ever and then it'll all go awesome. No, one thing TC's getting to here, because what's funny is you're going to think compared to other coaches, you think when he was in complexity, you're going to think they must stand for like teddy bear guy or something, like fucking, he's just going to be a chill coach. He won't be able to handle s1mple. No, one thing he actually identified there, which I also think goes under the radar, is if you have a player like a s1mple, doesn't even have to be as extreme an example of that, could just be someone who's a bit difficult to work with. Another thing you're doing as the coach is you're also doing your own separate meetings with the other players and you're coaching them how to communicate with this person and to meet them somewhat halfway. And it's not just you going to the s1mple guy and going, look, you bang out of order, you've got to do X, Y, and Z and help this. But you have to sort of explain that. And if you do that, one of the things that you're getting to here as well is you are going to explain to the people, like, look, we actually need this guy to be really fucking good at the game too. He's going to actually win us the match. So how do we sort of all be the s1mple whisperers and get the right message to him so that then he can, like you say, maybe he vents for a round, but then he's right back at it and he's taking out on the other team, and he.
So we've had a long conversation about what the team needs to do for s1mple. So I suppose it leads into the BC game lineup and whether or not this is the team that can do it. Because I saw them, I'm going to say it, like I saw the Soul Core pick up and I just was like, well, this is just absolute hot trash. Like that's what's coming. You've got electronic.
All right. No, don't hold
I'll
back
just
then.
say it.
Fucking hell. You beat at some of those PGLs that were there, like, oh, welcome hot trash. Oh, sorry, I mean Saw.
I'm talking about, I mean, I'm not talking about Saw, I'm talking about what BC game looks like now. But it's like you've got s1mple, who we've spent like almost sort of half the episode explaining why s1mple is a special egg that needs to be carefully handled with like special gloves.
It's like Wagyu beef, you know, you got to keep it warm, pat him down every day. Yeah.
And he'll still shout at you after that. And then you've got Electronic, who has a whole list of issues that we can bring in as well. Then you pick up these 3 Portuguese players who must know that the moment this team moves up the rankings, their heads are on the chopping block. Like you
Listen, you don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps. There's the
that's the meme, right? Like you are well aware that you are a stopgap. Like, all you are is an opportunity for this organization to try and attract better players. put them all together, and I just was like, this is a mess. Like, this is never.
They even look when they lose a round, like as if they look at s1mple, or like as though he's gonna like pull out a red card or something and fire from the team instantly. You know, like they all have that nervous energy, don't they? Like the dog that thinks they're gonna get kicked or something. Bloody hell, like that side eye.
So I mean,
but
TC, like, back me up here. You didn't? Did you see this lineup when it got announced? There's no ways you looked at this and was like, "Oh, that could be good." I'm pretty sure you looked at this and was like, "Well, I'm glad I'm not Taz."
No, I mean, like, I agree with what you say. You know, like, obviously, you can look at it and firstly be like, oh, we're just placeholders, but also like, geez, like for some of these guys, you're getting the fucking chance to play with the GOAT, right? Like, and if you can like pull off some things and put in the work and prove that you deserve to be there, like, hey, you get to stick around there, and maybe they get rid of one or two other guys or whatever. You don't know what ends up happening, but you could be part of like a future winning roster that they could build around this guy if, like, obviously s1mple gets back to his peak level and, like, you know, they figure everything out, right? But yeah, I mean, like, obviously from seeing, there were so many rumors going around about BC.Game trying to buy this core and that core and so on. It was like very obvious they were just trying to get in so that they can actually play some high level tournaments and get back to lands, and you know, then obviously take things from there, play a few games, and then like you see what happens. Maybe things go well and you can continue with the core. Maybe, like, is it ever gonna really be good enough though? Because s1mple wants to win championships. He doesn't want. He's not the guy who just wants to get to the main stage or get to the playoffs. He's gonna want to win. So, like, obviously, like there is gonna be upgrades happening probably consistently for this roster until they get to that point where they can actually win again, right? But I mean, then again, to be fair, like, judging by some of the interactions that we saw on camera and from what we saw from some in Krakow, looks like, hey, maybe these are the guys that can actually handle it. Like, seeing like Muture's response to s1mple, like not just keeping his mouth shut, like actually like challenging him back, you know, saying like, oh, this actually happened, like I need to peak here, like, you know, he's actually challenging his thoughts, because also at the end of the day, s1mple, it's not 2021 anymore, 2022 anymore, you know, like s1mple's knowledge of the game, it might not, everything he says might not be 100% correct anymore, you know, like, as much as we say like, yes, he knows a lot about the game, he understands the macro and so on, like, but things have also changed, right? And so for me to just see that from the start, like, you already have like Mutrus like standing up and like challenging him back, like on the front, like, oh shit, like maybe these are the right guys to be working with him. And like, obviously, the main thing that I said earlier is, as long as you don't have that resentment building up between these teammates and they start forming their like little individual groups within the team and it's just a division from the start, like, maybe this could be you know, a good space and good people to work with. And then I think you also have Taz there, which I think probably helps, right? Like, he's probably the right guy to be with these people, to be like mitigating these situations and conflicts and confrontations that they're obviously going to have, right?
By the way, on that angle, because it's the same thing people did with Zway and Spirit, where they all felt sorry for him, and I just went, wait a minute, this guy was in Amiga like 5 minutes ago, an irrelevant team that at best would be in stage one of the major. Then he got to join Spirit, one of the best teams in his entire region. He won 2 events. One was an IM Cologne. He got to go to the major and go to the semis, and all that experience, and then, yeah, he got kicked out and he got to go to a better team than Amiga. Like, I think it worked out like a motherfucker for Zway. Like, what are we feeling sorry for? You know what I mean? So I think the same thing about these SAW players. I'll give you a quick analogy. Do you know when people hear the story of like a 70-year-old like billionaire guy who, you know, he gets married to some ridiculous 28-year-old swimsuit model, and everyone's like, oh, come on, she's an obvious gold digger, she's waiting for him to die so she can get all the billions, isn't she? And then they think, look at her, that's shameless, just using an old guy like that. It's like, mate, that's an old guy who's a billionaire. You think he doesn't know? You think he's like, oh, no, don't use me for all the money. 28-year-old swimsuit model I could never get if I was just working at a fucking gas station. Oh, no, anyway, off to bed we go. He knows what he's doing. He's getting it. Don't worry, there's an upside for him too. So I agree. These SAW players, mate, one, you get to play with s1mple. Two, you also get like the world watching you play these games too. And I actually think Crazy is the example of the player at that tournament that actually got a lot of props. People are like, actually, this guy's pretty decent. I thought he would be the most irrelevant of the lot. He's not bad. And I also do think they won't all get kicked, in my opinion. Look, I think Materia stays anyway because he needed an IGL. And then I think between the other two, yeah, okay, it is that moment in the dark night where he breaks that pool cue, like we're having tryouts. Like, yeah, listen, both of you will not survive this. It's like a Harvard induction, you know. Look to your right, look to your left. One of these people will not be here at the end of the course. But you know what? As long as you are, who cares, right? You got to be a bit cynical sometimes.
No, exactly. And like you're saying, like it's all about that as well. Like you get so much value from these opportunities as well. Like even if you do get kicked at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like who cares? It's about the experience
Yeah.
and everything. As long as you're taking something from that experience, you're probably
Yeah.
better off afterwards than you were before you joined, right? So
But
yeah,
you've also got some banging stories in the bar too. When you, what was it
100%.
like? Well, let me just tell you, and then you tell them, don't you? Exactly.
No, 100%.
I like that Materis is now always going to be like some 21-year-old swimsuit model in my eyes. I'm
course.
always going to see
There you go.
that as the picture. Okay, so we're looking at this BC game. We've obviously spoken a bit about what we think about the lineup, but I am curious, TC, from your side, because they obviously started out online, and anyone who was doubting the lineup was very excited by the results.
Was right to doubt it.
Yeah. And then there was such a big difference on land. But my question to you is about the fact that this is a roster that, while they might have bought the core, still have to spend a lot of time playing online. And the fact that there is such a big difference between their online play and what they do on land, is that concerning for you when you look at how they're playing?
I mean, it's hard to really say like that there's such a big difference between their online play and their LAN play because it's so early on. And when they played that IEM Rio qualifier, like they probably had like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days of practice be going into that. So what, you've maybe practiced every map 1 or 2 times, like depending how many scrims you played, you maybe talked about a few things and so on. And then they end up playing that qualifier. I think like I was still in South Africa and that game went live at 3 a.m. for me. So
it was something outrageous.
the second one, it was ridiculous. I was like,
Yeah.
this is just a shit show waiting to happen. Like, so I mean, like, and then obviously you have people like they're used to better standards. Now they're playing a qualifier 2 in the morning. They're already in their heads about it probably, whereas the other guys are just excited to play the game. You know, they're in the close qualifier or whatever. You know, so yeah, I think like you don't need to put much weight into that first qualifier. They went to LAN, obviously. I think even looking at their LAN results, like it's hard to put that much weight into that because what they beat Legacy, I think, in their first game, right? They had like a pretty good comeback. But I mean, was the Legacy team already dead at that point? You know, when they were playing them, because literally right after the event, they're replacing Lux and they're not even using him to still go to Cluj or whatever. Like it's completely withdrawn. So like, how bad were things maybe before that already? You know, before they went into these games, then they got smashed by 3D Max, I think it was.
Yep.
Fair enough, hard team to play against if you're a new team. You don't have all the protocols down. They're always like running at you, and like it's just tough team to deal with. And then, I mean, the good result for them is the fact that they beat NIP, I would say, because NIP have been like guarding that line or barrier into the top 20, top 24 teams for this past year. Basically, they've just been sitting on that line, and like they're pretty much like safeguarding that spot. So the fact that they beat them, actually pretty impressive, I would say. Although NIP did also just make the roster change where I think they got rid of Ujix and got Ken in there, right?
Yep.
So, you know, maybe they're still ironing things out. I think also the NIP lineup, they also pretty good at throwing some rounds that they shouldn't be losing as well. You know, I didn't watch that game, so I'm not sure exactly how it went down. And then, I mean, they proceeded to get smashed in the main stage. So they had like one competitive half, I would say, against Vitality, and they took a map off FaZe, who weren't looking good at all, or not looking near to the level they were playing in the major. So it's like, yeah, and then like they played the qualifier online now where they beat Alliance and lost the game Elysian. It's early days for me. I think it's still early days for this roster. I think like they've obviously had limited practice with the team to iron out a lot of things. So I think it's tough to give them a fair judgment or a good assessment of like, hey, where they're going to be at. Are they going to be able to make it through any of these online qualifiers? But I mean, you have s1mple. He's probably going to fucking carry you to an online qualifier victory in sooner or later, right? So, yeah, I mean,
this is how I know I'm too close to this story, guys. Is because part of me so desperately just wants to say, I hope they play a Passion U ASAP online. Just to be vindictive, you know.
Just to be mean.
I hope that match happens, you know.
It will be great. Like, I'll take it, eh?
Okay.
Hopefully they go to one of the open lands. I'm not even sure if they're maybe going to the Roman Imperium Cup or like Draculand or something. I'm sure they'll be at the BC.Game tournament.
Yeah, of course.
If that's not a conflict of interest or something.
I'm supposed to say, is that even allowed? But okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
listen, we live in a world where there was like Bet Boom tournaments with Bet Boom team playing.
Exactly.
The amount of shenanigans in esports is nuts.
It's like, don't worry, some other media company is actually organizing
They'll
it.
find somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, look, I think they're going to be better than what teams are giving them credit for. Because obviously, like teams are, like Muterus, I think we've already seen like he's proven to be a good call over the years. I think
good.
like even with the old like Saw lineup, like they just have these they play this style where it's like a little bit crazy and chaotic, and they're forcing these fast rotations. And if they're not playing against a team that has like really good fundamentals, protocols, and really good communication across the board, you can see like they easily catch these teams off guard, and they win a lot of free rounds, right? And as long as I feel like Simple and Electronic like keep buying into that system, and they're not like discouraged by it or not wanting to change everything about it, like I feel like they probably keep getting good results, right? Or they'll at least be able to upset some of these top teams, especially with some practice. And then, like, I'm sure with the input and stuff that they're going to be providing, they could even like end up creating an even better system, right? So yeah, I think it's, like I said, early days, but let's see what happens over the course of the next month or two before the major cutoff, because I'm sure they got this roster to go to the major, right? And yeah, well, it'll be interesting.
TC was so diplomatic there. Thorin, I'm curious, but before I ask you your opinion, I'd like to share a friend of Feed the Trolls, Yanko. He had some choice words after watching
Come on.
the team on Dust 2. I quite enjoyed what he had to say. He said, I'm going to read it. It felt like a 5-stack going up against a duo with 3 other guys queuing. BC Game just doesn't look like a team whatsoever, and I'm not even talking about the Counter-Strike. Once they have some hype moments, they're just sitting there. It's actually painful to watch from the outside. How do you feel about Yanko's take on the team?
So he's doing it again. You're prodding the personal sex. I want to just go, Yanko, aren't you like the best friend ever of Nico, mate? It can't be as painful as watching him choke his tits off every fucking major from BC until now. That's the BC game you want to worry about, mate. The entire history of him choking his tits off. So don't know about that one. Weird, some of his teams don't look like teams, do they? They look like a super FPL pug where Nico's having a great Mirage game and everyone else just has to wait for his calls, don't they? Anyway, no, but anyway, to do real analysis. Look, I don't disagree. Like, in that team, it is obviously absurd, isn't it? Like, one thing that does spoil the whole roster as well is if it was 4 lesser or, you know, just tier 2 players and simple, I think it'd be a different story. The real question is, why is Electronic there? Like, Electronic, it looked like, quite frankly, wouldn't have a team if it wasn't for Simple right now, or he'd be playing some Russian mix. So, unfortunately, I do think people look at that squad and they go, even if maybe, I would speculate he wasn't at the top of the list from Simple to BC Game the org. But I imagine when they went down and loads of people, suppose he said no, that when they were like, look, we can get you Electronic, I imagine actually it was a Simple call. It sounds like he obviously fucks with them and probably thinks of the better days. It's actually a weird thing about pro players, maybe people don't understand, which is pro players, it's not that people always make the mistake. You're not friends with the people who are your teammates, but you do sometimes have the like brotherhood thing, a bit like being in war, that you've been through shit together. And what happens is when you've been through hard times and good, it forges you in a certain way that can take a long time to break. Like at the end, I always said this, if you could have taken the nameplates off and looked at people like Rain and Carrigan, they'd get fired tomorrow from FaZe Clan. But if you know what they have brought and what you still feel like maybe it's still in there somehow, maybe that a veteran could bring it out, you'll give them extra chances. So I think someone like Simple doesn't see Electronic the way some of us do, which is quite cynical. Like, is he even any good anymore? Can he even play not being an IGL? Is he actually good? By the way, he used to have his own pretty spicy personality towards teammates. Is he going to bring that? But then not even have the Simple game to justify it. So I think that's also been part of the baggage of the team. I can see why Yanko says that, because I will say, if you are Simple, mate, it is convenient that you always seem to have something to say to the Portuguese players that fuck up. But then I watch Electronic just whiff completely and fuck around up. And you never seem to be barking in his ear, do you, mate? He seems to sort of have the pass, doesn't he? So I know what he means by that. It does look like they're the little group. And then the other 3 are like the ones that you're waiting until you're losing 15-14 to kick from the server so they get fucked over on the matchmaking system. It does look like that a little bit. I know what he means.
What do you think about his comments, TC?
No, I mean, like, it's obviously, I think it was very, very prevalent to see, especially, I think there was the iconic one from Krakow that we already have, right? The Muterus 1v2 clutch, and everyone's just sitting there, like, looking like someone died.
He like some old like nobleman from the 18th century in France. He just flopped a hand up for the high five, like. There was no
made
energy in it.
me.
Yeah, he wasn't.
You made-
It was like you made, like with a glove on, like you may touch my hand, peasant. Like,
Yeah.
and they had like one in like a pretty good round as well. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like,
love
obviously on
it.
the one hand, that's pretty discouraging, I guess, from like just the
And it
team.
was against like one of the better teams too, as well. Like it wasn't even some scrub team. Like, come on, mate.
I think it was against FaZe on Dust too,
Yeah.
right?
FaZe,
Like,
was it
I
FaZe?
believe
Yeah.
that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like that's going to be the main thing for this team, right? It's like, can they get the mental the mental state right? It's like what I said earlier. Are you going to get these guys to the level of understanding that, like, hey, the venting is going to happen, but it's about how we're going to deal with it. That's going to set apart if we can actually beat teams, or if we're going to get smashed on the server as soon as something bad happens. Like, I think that's the main thing. That's their main challenge, really.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be their main challenge. And then obviously how are the other players going to deal with it if Simple's yelling at you, but he's not yelling at Electronic, like Duncan is saying, right? Like, are they going to be okay? Are they going to be okay with that dynamic, or what's going to happen there? I mean, also, I must say, like, we talk about like all this like Simple and toxicity and so on, but I must also just say, like, it's actually like, it's just so nice, like, just having him back at the hotel and at the events, because he's the most pleasant person, like, in person, outside of the server, always saying hi, like, asking about things, like, good luck with the matches. Like,
he even comes off as a little bit shy if people don't know. He's actually quite a like chill person outside of the game, as long as there's no match involved. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but he's obviously just super competitive, and like, I think that's what people need to understand. Like, if he's going to do something, he's going to do it to the best of his like ability. And you know what, like, even with some of these things, like, he might be like pointing out things and he might be the one that's wrong, you know, and it's gonna happen. But in the moment, what do you want to do? You want to fight about this little thing that just happened, or do you want to keep just saying like, oh, sorry, like, let's keep going, you know, like, oh, my bad, I fucked up. Like, how hard is it to say that? Some people just can't manage to say that though, because you can just say, hey, my bad, I fucked up, carry on playing. After the game, you can go and show him like, hey, look, this is actually what happened, this was the situation, I don't think I'm actually wrong here. And he'll probably be like, oh fuck, yeah, sorry, my bad, like, you did the perfect play there.
I've got an angle for you I bet you've never heard before. Listen, I sit around thinking about these things. I'm like I would be the best lawyer. Argument for the defense, you know, I'd come up with some fucking crazy theory. So you ready? I'm gonna hit you with it. You've never heard this angle ever before, which is one thing that TC is nearly here is the most important thing to me isn't the specifics of what language did you use, how did you address the person, were you rude, were you polite, where were you on like that. I care more about what was the intent behind it. What were you trying to communicate? Like, if you were just trying to communicate your frustration, by the way, then I would probably tell him as a coach, like, don't make it specific then. Just make it like, oh, fuck, what are we doing? Or, oh, we need to, you know, do some way to make it abstract. If it's like a specific thing that if you'd worded it more politely would just be essentially like a minor correction, like, oh, be careful, like, not to go in front of the smoke when we throw it like that because it's not what we're trying to do on this route. That's different. Like, what I want to actually know is the person trying to win, like he says, are they trying to be helpful even if they're misguided? Because you do know if you actually want to just make it that's just that he did, this is a very American thing, like he just stepped outside of corporate culture and he raised his voice. Sir, please don't raise your voice towards me, you're being aggressive. That's shit, right? By the way, it can go the other way too. I'll give you an example. What if I taught Simple, I took him away for a boot camp, and I'm going to do my own no PC boot camp, but it's going to be in two senses, no PC, right? And what I would train Simple is I'll train him all that therapy talk you love, Sam, all you and your fucking sports psychology wonk mates who are like, oh, look at my degree, I can teach people CS. So here's what we do. All of a sudden, Simple comes back and he doesn't go, oh, what the fuck were you doing there, Crazy, you idiot? Play more passive. He goes, Crazy, the way that you played that round made me feel very uncomfortable. And right now I'm feeling vulnerable with my position in the team. And I'm wondering if the reason why you didn't listen to my love language is because actually you've got baggage of your own to work with. And sometimes I feel like you don't appreciate it. You see, everyone can do that, mate. We can all just disappear in the fucking abstraction and ruin the whole convo. So that's why I actually do care. But I do think Simple certainly pretty sweet. The number one thing I would tell him is this, mate, your teammates aren't from Eastern Europe. Like, they aren't from the background you're from. Exactly. Like, the people, you have to understand how Portuguese people talk, for example. You need to know how Taz is going to... Right. I would say you can certainly change it up, but I also do think it matters a hell of a lot more to me if he actually genuinely wants the team to improve and fix the problem, as opposed to he's just ranting that someone kicked the ball the wrong way and then it's an analogy.
100%. I think that's very important to understand. And also what you said there about nailing the Eastern Europeans, like nailed on the head. Because when I just joined the Passion team with full of the Ukrainians, like, especially when I didn't get obviously they were communicating in Ukrainian or Russian, whatever language they chose to use at the time. but like the arguments like
Of
would sound
course.
so heated, and then like
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
like, "Is everything good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, all good."
Yeah.
You know, that's just
Yeah.
how they
Fine.
talk to each other. That's just how they talk to each other. And then like you would get like I would start getting the tone of when shit's actually going
Exactly.
down. You know, then it's
Exactly.
like, oh, okay, like I need to step in here.
Like me at the beginning
things
of the
are actually
episode,
going
it's
bad.
important to learn people's culture and then how to speak to them in their language.
Exactly.
You know, the thing is, we're joking around here, but Thorin, that joke that you just made about how he should present himself, like there are some people that works better with, and
Sure. Yeah.
I've had to learn this as I've got older because I realized like I'm quite TC's known me for a long time. He knows how many people I've upset just because I say it like it is, and in the moment I just say it. And I've what did someone say to me the other day? It's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. So my tone
Okay.
may come across as such that I'm like dismissive and I'm just saying, no, we're going to do it like this, or no, I think we should do it like this. And so people, I've realized that a lot of people get really offended and upset and take it very
Sure.
personally. And I could be just talking about, like in my case, maybe it's a broadcast and I'm talking about the bigger picture and how I imagine it could be, or we're in a rush, we're about to go on and someone says, let's do this. And I just go, no, and like carry on. And to them, I've just completely dismissed them and broken them.
Right.
But I'm actually just like rushing to get somewhere else. So, I mean, I do kind of think that that's probably also the case is I don't think Simple's a bad guy. I've hung out with him at a hotel. I've spoken to him. I think he's like a really nice guy. I think he just likes to win. And so maybe in those moments, also, like you said, the Eastern European culture, maybe it's going to come across a bit harsher because in his world and like in mine, you say it like it is, and the other person says it like it is, and you have it out and you move on. But for a lot of people, that's just what I've learned is that's not always the case. So you have to be a little bit more understanding of people's feelings.
Handle them like a delicate flower, but I
Like a
don't think you're going to get Simple to do that.
Do you think, I mean, let's go completely left field here. Do you think FaZe made a mistake not signing him after the major, Thorin?
Ooh, the problem with that one is, like, I actually think that whole thing ended up being a smokescreen. Like, first of all, I do think, knowing the things I've heard behind the scenes now, that when those FaZe org people, who aren't the Counter-Strike people, were all going on their streams hinting, oh, I've got to sign this guy, bloody hell, wow, Simple's back. A lot of that, I do think they were just farming engagement, and they just knew, like, right, we've got it now, basically. So while we've got him at the moment, because remember, the story was you were renting him month by month at the time from the team, from Navi, right? And it was like 100k a month or something outrageous. Well, the premise was they were getting the money's worth. They were like going to build the hype of like, maybe we are going to do it and see how the fans reacted. But if you actually look at what like the leaked amounts were for whatever it cost for him to go to BC.Game, and then you look at the condition FaZe Clan has been in recently, I actually get the sense they might not have even actually had the choice. Like maybe they just don't have the money to pay for that. And also he's going to want some obscene salary too and things. A lot of people probably don't know this. FaZe Clan isn't one of those Falcons type orgs that pays megabucks. They pay good money, but they're actually nowhere close to the number one. And in fact, if you notice in the last few years, it feels like the real reason you join FaZe Clan is specifically to play with like Carrigan, for example, or because you want to play with Rops when he was there or something. You don't do it because it's like the highest bidder, it's the best team to go to. So I don't know that they necessarily were going to. I have also heard behind the scenes that even at that particular major, let's just say he wasn't being super professional with some of the out of the server stuff, and maybe he still was being a bit of a rock star, you know, and thinking he could get away with it. Which, remember, right up until that stage match, he was right. He was right and we were wrong. He was owning the fucking Mongols. It was looking great. Everyone saw the stats. Like, look, it didn't work out on the stage match. In fact, I actually think if you asked him now, he probably regrets that fucking stage match a lot and wishes he had dialed in for that one because maybe that could have accelerated the whole process. So I don't know if they would have. Listen, I think they should have done personally because, I mean, as people have already seen, that Brokey rollback at the major didn't even last that long, mate. It's like, I've already seen him now. He's not that good. Like, he's just had so many problems in the team. And at this point, it hasn't just been a month. Like, if you add in the time that he's had a hard time, it's like most of the last year or so for Brokey. So I think in that scenario, if you could and you had the funds, you'd probably want to get a better offer anyway. So I always thought it was worth rolling the dice with Simple because whether or not it ruined the internal dynamic, the upside, if he ever gets like actually 3 months of lands under his belt, could be insane. So far, every time he's done these mini comebacks, you get like 2 lands and then he fucks off for 3 months again. So none of us actually really know the answer. What happens if he does just dial in for 6 months? Does he ever become really good again? And I'll just say the flashes that we've had so far are certainly enticing. It's why I don't think anyone can quit this story.
Yeah, no, I think there could have definitely been some upside to actually getting him on board with FaZe. I think like some of the players probably enjoyed playing with him, and then it was probably a matter of some of the other personalities in the team not really enjoying that as much, and that's probably what also other than the financial things, because obviously I think it was a pretty big buyout to get him from Navi, especially because I think his contract was also close to ending, so it probably just didn't make sense to spend that amount of money for a guy whose contract is close to ending, right? So yeah, I do think, like Duncan's saying, like probably could have been a lot of upside, could have accelerated the process, or maybe like these things that have happened with the lesser teams or lesser experienced players now that he's had to play with and see like, oh shit, this is what it's like when like I'm not going to be doing my part. Could also be like, you know, for the greater good, if you want to say that, or whatever.
Sure.
Maybe it made him make some realization. Maybe those were some lessons that he needed to learn or take from it, to see that, okay, I've also actually got to do my part and do things correctly if I actually want to get back to competing and be back at that top level where I'm fighting for trophies.
Do you think he ever gets back to that top level? Because at this point,
you have to be careful. Like asking. That's like asking a Christian, "Will Jesus return?" Of course.
Yeah.
Have you not read the prophecies, Sam? Of course he will. He rose from the dead after 3 days of winning the major, and now he's back. Like, yeah, this is the third time. Logically, yeah, he's back.
There's 5% odds on Polymarket for that at the moment, right? So if you want to get in there.
Okay. I like it. Okay. I like that. I didn't even thought that. Of course, there's a market already for whether he does. I know.
Ridiculous.
I love it.
I just saw this whole scrolling gigs the other day. I see this 5% odds he'll return before 2027. I'm like, who's buying yes?
Also, by the way, trolls aside, I'll tell you actually a real reason why, if he ever does get on a team that actually goes not just to one tournament that has 3 months of online play, if he ever gets to the real LAN circuit where you play like 10 tournaments in a row, here's the reason why there's a chance beyond just his talent. One thing that is really positive about s1mple, if you love competition, is, as we've just outlined, it's not just as a team. He fucking hates to lose, and he hates the idea someone is better than him in a really good way, though, not a negative. So, like, for example, not only Ziwu every tournament getting crowned like it is another massive accomplishment, is he the GOAT, but also knowing someone like Donk, like, I guarantee you, if s1mple actually, like, if you could actually sit s1mple down with the truth serum and say, if I gave you a whole year and equal teams, would you be better than those players? He would tell you he'd be better than even Donk, mate. He really would, and he would believe it too. Which, in a way, if you want s1mple to come back, you want him to think that, you want him to go hell for leather and really believe he can do the miracle and be number one again. Forget him, just be good, just be the best. So that's why I say it's such a compelling story, like, because you can't 100% just write it all off like you would with any other player.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
the problem. Yeah, I mean, TC, I was going to say it's the joy of watching s1mple, and the problem, right, is we kind of consistently go, he might just do it. Like, he's
Exactly.
the one player that you're like, he might just do it. So you kind of can't stop watching.
No, exactly, 100%, 100%. That's its spice, and like I think for him, it's just as long as you can like kind of keep him happy. Like, it's a weird thing to say, like, you know, like, got to keep the player on the team happy. But I mean, I think if you can keep him happy, and not just happy but motivated to continue playing and continue grinding, like Duncan's saying, like, the sky is always the limit with this guy. Like, you see what he can do when he hasn't played for how long, right? There's always these glimpses, and like you're saying, you always believe like oh, he can do it, you know, he's going to do it, he's going to win the round. So I 100% agree with that. I think if everything kind of works out, and like the team kind of finds whatever they need to find, whether that means changes or whether that means people just understanding how to work with each other better, like I really think that he can probably get back to that point where he's competing for trophies.
Do you really think that that's how he gets there, though, by an entire team kind of bending around him and what he wants and what he demands? Because I don't know any player that would put up with being consistently like shouted at, even if they understood by him. And then when they do something good, it's like would you like, exactly like we joked about, would you like to touch my hand now? Like, at some point someone will crack. There's no, I don't know anyone, maybe a JT because he's pretty laid back, but for the most part I think like most players wouldn't be okay with that after a while.
I mean, it's also not about like bending around him and giving into his every demand, right? Like, you need to have, that's why what I said at the start is like, it's all about surrounding him with the right personalities. I think so. Whether it's these guys that they have now, or whether they're going to make changes to get the right personalities around him, that's what it's about. Because like I said already, like, you have Mutrus challenging him and his thoughts on what he should have done there. Like, you need people like this that's going to be able to not just accept that I'm getting yelled at or whatever, but challenging him and like understanding the intent behind it, like we were alluding to earlier, right? Like, that's what it's about. It's not about bending it around him and giving into everything that he's saying, but like, he obviously wants to be surrounded with people that understand the game to his level and that's putting in the same amount of effort, and that's like not throwing the game, right? Like that's pretty much what it's about. You're putting in the effort, you're putting in the work, and you're getting better. And I mean, I think that's just what everyone wants to see, especially if you're one of these players. That's the type of people you want to be surrounded with. And when you're not surrounded with people like that, that's putting in the work, that's improving every day, and that's like at least listening to what you're saying, then you're obviously going to get demotivated and go play Dota 2.
Plus, he obviously has had those teammates in the past that could handle it, and it was working out. And that's why I always do put part of this not just on Simple. I think if Taz is going to be his coach, then Taz takes some of the responsibility, because I think a lot of people would also have said, even before the Na'Vi that was #1 in 2024, wasn't one of the most impressive things Blade did, actually, is get people on board to be able to work with Peak Simple and then to win and have an excellent team. I'm sure that meant he himself was doing a lot of meetings and talking with different players, and then when he would bring the academy players up, I'm not he had to coach them as to this is what it's going to be like, and just ignore the first few things he says, or, I'll handle it in the meeting, whatever it might be. I'll also throw it out there. It's not always just going to be like some limp wristed, like, there's going to also be the moments where, for real, you actually do make an awesome play, or you do something cool around that helps him get a 3K, and he's going to genuinely be like, oh, great job, man. And here's the thing, Sam. You should be able to appreciate this. Can no one imagine the idea that there's this guy who seems a little bit edgy and a bit harsh, and he's just so mean, but then when he's the one that shows you the affection and you're the center of his world, oh my goodness, it feels even better. I feel so special now. I'm the one he chose. Ooh, imagine that, eh? All I'm saying is that's a dynamic that exists in the world. He's the Chad.
Isn't there someone who sells a whole? Didn't someone sell a whole book about telling men to do that to get women?
Probably.
Didn't someone from G2
do we need a book for that? It feels like a Twitter thread. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm almost 99% sure that when we were in South Africa, there's this one gaming event a year called Rage, and the one year there was a dude selling a course. And that was the premise of it. Okay. He paid for space, and he was standing at Rage selling this course, trying to tell people that he could help them get girls.
Okay.
And I thought it was amazing. No one went up to him though, so that is something to consider. Maybe because they were embarrassed, they didn't want to be seen going up to him, or he also he looked like a creep, so there was that as well. But there you go. but that was my fun little add on there. I mean, the question really remains, though, with BC Game. Obviously, if they don't start putting up the results, none of this is going to matter, right? Because they're going to just fall lower and lower in the VRS rankings. Do you stick with what, I mean, TC said it earlier, Thorin, and I'm wondering if you agree that there just hasn't been enough time to judge whether this is the lineup that can get them to lands, or if they are going to struggle. Do you also think we need to give them a little bit more time and see what comes out?
My problem is I've always had a theory that, you can't, first of all, before people have gone to LAN, you haven't really had time to know what the team even is, because it doesn't matter what they're doing in practice or an online game with no pressure. Until you actually are in the situation where you're playing the LAN game, you don't suddenly realise how many problems there are and which areas of the communication don't exist. And actually, you know what? We thought we were all right in this map where we were playing it in scrims, but actually we're terrible on LAN. Fuck, we can't ever let that go through again. So I always think you need 2 or 3 LANs before you really get a sense, because that way you have the chance to have, at this one, so you have the super high of the NIP game, but then you have the lows of the 3D Max game, but then you have the sort of, it was all right in one half against Vitality and they had moments against, that's still smaller sample size. Give them 2 more lands worth of those sorts of spectrum and you'll get a real sense of whereabouts are they, which is the real BC game, basically, of that question of all the performances. So you need a bit of that. The other thing as well is, I will just totally admit, I've never looked at this roster and thought, yeah, this is it. This roster could do it. I'm really selfish. I'm like, right, good. There's 3 warm bodies that can go with Simple Electronic. They've got an invite to a LAN, nailed it. We'll see him at the LAN. And then actually what happened at this LAN is what I hoped would happen. Simple goes along. He gets all the AWPs. He hits a few shots. Everyone goes, ooh, maybe Unk still has it. And then you go back home. And then, yes, you pull up that big whiteboard that the other 3 Portuguese players aren't aware exists in a side office of the BC Game facility where Electronic, Simple and Taz go to decide every day, who are we kicking first, right? And it's there's a rankings, and as they do a 3K up, he's number 2 in the rankings now. And then Crazy doesn't know it, but right now he's number 1. He's killing it, right? He's not getting kicked at all. But I'll tell you what, you fuck around with you throw the wrong grenade for Simple next week, you might be number 3 on that list. So they don't need to know about that room, though. That's a secret. That's the GM's room. And eventually that will solve everything. I don't know how yet, because I have to understand, I am also deluded. Even though I understand all these terrible stories about Simple, part of me, This is the sort of player I've always vibed with in terms of like teammates. I've always liked the players who have that mentality of sort of like, I also just want to win. So you know what? Even if it's a bit of a handful, this guy, if he really can do it in the server, fuck it, I'll play with him. And I think there are people like that in the scene. So as long as s1mple is enough of a draw, he's clearly not in a massive draw, by the way. Some people clearly don't want to play with him. That story that like the Australians call was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, even though some of them probably don't even play CS right now. Yeah, that is sort of telling. So I think you've got to find the right people, but I think eventually you get one or two better players in the team, surely.
Yeah, if you really want to compete, especially consistently for like at the top tier events, you're gonna have to make changes, right? Like even with the old Soul roster, what did they really achieve? They had like maybe 3 good playoff runs over the course of like 1.5 years or something like this, and those were mostly at tournaments where the top teams weren't present. Like it was like a Fisher and like can't remember if it was
the smaller
a CSC
PGLs
or something
and
like
stuff. Yeah,
it was PGL. It was a PGL, right? So yeah, I mean, like for sure, you're probably going to end up making 1 or 2 changes, especially if you're looking at competing consistently.
Which is the better lineup right now, Passion UA or BC Game TC?
Oof, interesting. We had a draw in a scrim, so we tied.
Oh, they tied in scrims. I see. Okay.
No, I mean, I would like to say that I would like back ourselves over them right now. Like, I mean, we've just been together for much longer. I think we've probably have a higher floor level. So I feel like we would be the favorite in that matchup, but we'd have to see when we play them on LAN. Nothing matters, eh?
Would not give us a definitive answer, but there you go. You can tell us what you think in the comments. We're done now, and we'll be back soon for another episode.